Hi everyone, welcome back. Good for you guys to join us, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm back outside. I mean, not outside in the garden, still in self-isolation. I hope you guys are doing well, keeping safe. Hope your loved ones are safe as well. And well, let's continue with the story, shall we? So the CSA, the origins of it, quite interesting really. As an exam, it only became mandatory in about 2007, so prior to this you didn't have to have MRCGP to practice as a GP. Certainly that was my era. Summative assessment, and summative assessment involved an MCQ, video taping of your consultations, and essentially your trainer's report to deem that you were competent to practice as an independent GP. The MRCGP at the time, the old style exam, was deemed an exam of excellence, something that you would undertake if you wanted to specifically further interest in medical education and become a training program director or a trainer, which is what I aspired to become when I qualified as a GP. And it was a tough exam. There were 4 components to it. There was an AKT, very similar to the one that is undertaken today. We had a problem-solving critical appraisal paper, which was about 3 hours long, breaking down plots, breaking down studies from the BMJ, the BJGP. We then had the video consultations, which were marked essentially with COT criteria, very similar to the ones that are used now for your work-based placed assessment. And then we had the Viva. Now the Viva was an interesting one because it was a pair of examiners throwing questions at you around ethical scenarios, dilemmas, situations which you had to work your way through, justify your decision-making process, and the examiners could drill pretty deep as to how they asked you these questions. And it was a talking exam. Vivas are talking exams, and actually it's not just about what you say, but how you say it. So in essence, we have an exam which is relatively new as a licensing exam. The majority of trainers have never done this exam before. Only about 30% nationally have done the CSA, and therefore immediately we have some mixed messages out there. The first is, this is not a COT, and in fact if you start thinking about what the CSA has evolved from, it did not evolve from the video consultations, it actually evolved from the Viva. And why is that? Because the Viva is a talking exam, and so is the CSA. So looking at what it's testing you on, really it shouldn't be called a clinical skills assessment, because it's not actually. It's a conversational skills assessment, and to converse you've got to be able to talk, and actually talk under pressure, not just at your patient, but actually with your patient. And we don't converse well when we're nervous, and the reason for that is because we're symptom driven. We've been hardwired really since medical school to chase a symptom, to chase a diagnosis, to chase the clinical skill. So ultimately when you're put under simulation, your default position is to go back to that OSCE type approach of just chasing the diagnosis. But this is not a diagnostic driven exam. Prior to becoming a GP, I was actually a medical registrar in the late 90s, and I used to teach for PACES, so I'm MRCP, and MRCP compared to MRCGP was such a more, I suppose, simple is not the right word to describe the exam, because it was challenging in its own way, but it was more straightforward, I suppose. That's what I'm trying to say. Whereas the MRCGP and the CSA, it's a complex exam, and the reason for that is because you're being assessed on behaviours, and when you're put under pressure, those behaviours, they don't come out naturally. So the first message to take away is that it's narrative driven, and there's always a story before a symptom. But in real life, you see, that routine patient, they're not a CSA patient, they're a COT patient. And when trainers say, you know, just to pass this exam, see lots and lots of patients, that's a mixed message. Because those patients in real life, they're not CSA patients. The COT patient's going to tell you their story real easy. When that patient comes in and you say, you know, tell me more about that, they're going to go, yeah, sure. When you go, any other symptoms, they'll go, yeah, no problem. When you go, anything I've missed you want to tell me so I can pass this assessment, the CSA, yeah, of course, no issues. Whereas in the exam, in the CSA, tell me more is just going to be met with what you want to know. Any other symptoms, what does that mean? Anything I've missed? Well, you missed plenty. I can't tell you unless you specifically ask me. So it's not a cot. The CSA operates by different rules. And so the first strategy you need to take in is what you want to believe. Because when I'm doing work-based placed assessment as a trainer, I've got a cot hat on. If my GPST3 comes to me and says, Nigel, I want to do a bit of CSA practice, that cot hat, it doesn't exist anymore, and a CSA hat comes on. But it can't be formulaic. That's the whole challenge of this exam. To converse, it's got to feel real. And to feel real, don't think of the next question you want to ask. Just have a conversation. The analogy is a bit like ping pong. You ask a question, wait for the ping pong ball to come back, and you're responsible reactive to where it lands. But that's the problem. We don't converse well when we're nervous. We're just thinking of the next question that we want to ask. And I see this so often when I'm teaching for this exam. Next question, running out of questions. Oh, how about this one? Do you smoke? Do I smoke? What has that got to do with anything that we're conversing about? So there's always a story before a symptom, a patient before a diagnosis. Don't get me wrong, clinical skills are important, but much more in the context of risk management and how we manage uncertainty. And boy, are we going through very uncertain times right now, and how we manage risk. You guys are in the thick of it, and you know, I'm so proud to be part of the NHS, so proud that my registrars at St Mary's are opting to get back into urgent care and A&E to help people. I'm sure you guys are doing that too, and I really wish you very well, with it. So keep safe, please, keep safe, and catch up soon.